okay, so we were talking about the fact that we tend to see the universe as revolving around people like me. The center of the universe, if I'm blue, is in the center of blue.
Mm.
The center of the universe, if I'm green, to me is in the center of green. And if I'm red, it's in the center of red. So we look out on everybody else and say, you guys don't get it. I tend to be attracted to people that are similar to me in values, hang around people that are similar to me in values, and then judge everybody else because they're not like me.
As wrong. Or
wrong.
People I don't want to be with.
People I don't want to be with, and in some extent immoral.
Yes.
Because you don't understand the center of the universe is over here. It's not over there. So if I'm a green nurturer, now of course there's various levels of this, but in general, when I talk about being a nurturer, I look over at the reds and I go, I'm all about us getting along. I'm all about creating personal engagement. I don't. This is not a competitive environment. All you guys care about is winning. All you guys care about is money. Why would I trust you with anything? Because you're only going to take it, and really the real underlying conflict here is whenever you put a competitive structure in place, there are winners and losers.
Yes.
And in most cases, a few winners control most of the resources.
Yes.
There's an 80-20 rule.
In fact, today, what we've seen here is it's less than 1% of America controls 90% of the wealth.
And if you, and that's really extreme, but if you look at it just in any competitive structure,
80-20, yes.
There's an 80% of the resources are usually managed by 20% of the people, or used consumption-wise.
Yes.
It's all within
the
that
parallels
area.
all with that, yeah.
So what does that leave? It leaves a lot of losers out there for the nurturers to have to deal with. And in their mind, you can't have a structure that's about that from a social perspective. But they're right in that the social areas shouldn't be competitive, but they think in general reds don't get it. Reds are dangerous because they're going to try to create competitive structures, which they do sometimes.
And so what do the reds think about the greens?
Well, before I go there, the greens then look up to the blues too, and they go, okay, here's these people with the ideas, but they're in the clouds.
Yes.
What am I going to do with an idea that I can't use today? What's the use of that? So you tell me the world is round instead of flat.
Mm.
Who cares? What am I supposed to do that? How's that going to put food on my table? How is that going to affect me tomorrow? Now, if you can translate that idea into something that I can use today, maybe I'm interested in that. Generally, they look at people, again, also, when you think of nurturers, there's not a lot of change involved in that. It's a very gradual and slow process to evolve in a nurturing form.
Yes.
Too much change is not safe.
Right.
So we have to create an environment of safety if we're going to nurture. So that means change is not necessarily good.
Right.
And here I look up to these blue guys, and all they want to do is change.
Yeah.
They're a threat.
Right.
Both of these other areas are a threat. So we gotta, our tendency is to find other people that are like us and then attack everybody else to say they don't get it. The world
this is
should be
very
more
familiar.
Like me. As now, if I'm a red person over on the other side, now I'm thinking, nobody else gets it. It is about winning. The only way we're going to get better is to be efficient at everything. And I look over at those green guys, and I think they're a bunch of wimps.
Yes.
They can't manage anything.
Yeah.
If I give them any money around this thing, it's going to be totally wasted. They're going to make anything inefficient. They don't want to compete at all. They want everybody just to get along. And I know you can't function like that. So I don't trust nurturers to manage anything, especially money.
Mm-hmm.
I got to control that.
Mm-hmm.
And they look up at the blue guys, and they go, nice idea, but show me how I can make money off it. If I can create a transaction, if I can get some sort of a deal involved, I love it.
Mm.
Otherwise, it's not worth anything. So in they want to see short-term gain out of this idea. So you think of it, the idea we talked about earlier, ideas for ideas' sake. One of the things that's happened is in the last 40 years is going to the moon. And that whole initiative was probably led geopolitical reasons, but was not constrained by a market. It was not constrained by nurturing forces. It was, what is it we have to do to get there? A whole bunch of inventions or uncovering of patterns, if you want to call those, came out of that. One of them, titanium. Titanium would never have been invented if you just put a bunch of metal people around to say, okay, what do we need for the marketplace? There was no need for that to the same extent as going to space. But some smart guy down in the red zone said, titanium, I bet you there's a way to apply that
to my favorite sport.
To my favorite sport, golfing. And I make titanium golf clubs. Now, the only reason they're very interested in titanium for that purpose,
yes.
and that has become a very marketable component and has actually, changed the game of golf.
Yeah.
But if you would have put the golf manufacturers in a closet for 40 years, they would have a really good steel golf club right now. They would never have gotten to titanium.
So they would have had the million-year hand axe.
Well, maybe a better version of it.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. In that only incrementally better.
The real change comes into getting outside of the constraints of what you want.
Is perhaps the failure of the space of going to the moon in that they got to the moon and then there was no plan other than it was purely a pioneering idea with no possibility of sustaining it financially, provider, or doing something obviously better for everybody, nurturing. Might that the fact that it was almost wholly a pioneering idea also a reason why it basically fell apart once the initial goal had been met?
Well, I'm not sure of the specifics of that, but for sure, if it's not sustainable from a pioneering component, there was no buy-in to the overall mission once it got beyond that. There was too constrained in terms of how it was defined initially. If the mission was to go to the moon and put a man on the moon, they did it.
They did it.
If the mission was to go as far in space as we could, then it wouldn't have been done. So defining initially what what space we're in terms of the pioneering effort, and allowing that to evolve as opposed to creating just a constraint around it, would have a big effect on its ability to get to another layer.
Right.
But the pioneers, we look at the blue guys, they are up there, and most of the people in the red or the green look at these guys as kind of space cadets because they are up in the clouds and they don't understand why these ideas would matter. They tend to look down when they do their judgments at the red world is really pedestrian. A little who would be? It's boring. The transactions, the repetition of it. How could you possibly want to do that day in day out? You must be not as smart as me. That generally is how they would look at it, and they would look over at the nurturing world again, say, "Oh boy, these guys, they're like an anchor. I can't move anything with these guys. How come they can't see this? It's so obvious. Yet it takes 50, 100 years before I can get anything done there. Frustration.
Yes.
And probably think that they're smarter than them too.
Right. And what is their big outcome? If safety is the nurturer, winning is the provider. What's the pioneers?
If they're successful, the outcome that people are looking to get from that is to be able to see. If you see something that I can't, I have to be able to believe that you do, even if I don't. The intangible, even if I tangibly don't understand what you mean, by the Earth being round, or that there's this universe is billions of miles wide. I've got to be able to sense the faith in you that you can see that, and therefore I'm going to follow. Yeah. I want to take that and use it. Yeah. So I if I'm in the nurturing world, it's all about safe. If I'm in the provider world, it's all about winning, and if I'm in the idea pioneering world, it's all about seeing. How can I better see?
So in our next chapter, which will start in a moment, I'd like to ask you, well then, how do you put these conflicting things all together? How do we take the three basic cultural colours and start to do things with them all?
Sure.